Hey guys, this is No Way Jose. As you guys can hear, I'm a little bit sick. Because of that, I guys only produced one episode for you guys last week, but I should be making up for it with this one here. This will be an interesting one. I have my buddy, one of my favorite journalists, Ken Silva, joining me today, and we're going to be interviewing David Gletty. We've done a lot of interesting interviews on this channel, like a lot of victims, a lot of say like the cops involved, say with like Stephen Vassar, with a lot of the things that we like to talk about, like kind of the OKC era. And today we have David Gletty, who kind of was one of the people, one of the operatives, and he's kind of pretty open about that. So it'll be interesting to hear his story. Let's bring in Ken. He'll kind of fill in some of the holes, or he knows this better than I do. Hey Ken, it's a pleasure to have you with me. I'm glad I have you as a crutch in this trying times of my weak health.
Oh yeah, sorry for your ailment, but we'll push through this together. And
Yeah.
yeah, really excited for our guest tonight. A lot of your listeners and viewers probably heard me talk about my series, The Fed Files, which deals with the neo-Nazi movement in the early 2000s, kind of after the crazy era of the 1990s with the OKC bombing, but before all the crazy stuff with like Charlottesville and Trump. Um, my series is about that era, and specifically it's underpinned by court filings from a neo-Nazi named Bill White. And I'm reading Bill White's court filings, and one of his exhibits was actually a book written by an undercover FBI informant named David Gletty. So that's who our guest is tonight. He's going to tell us all about the neo-Nazi movement. One thing I want to clear up so he doesn't have to before we get started is David is not a neo-Nazi, and he was never a criminal. So he doesn't like to be called an informant, because that's usually, you get busted, the FBI flips you and makes you their bitch. This guy, he did it for the adrenaline and the money, and we're going to hear all about it. So yeah, David, welcome.
Hey David, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Uh,
Uh,
Thank you so much. Wow, I like that introduction there. Sets the rules.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're looking forward to hearing you. I think probably a good spot. I mean, Ken, you can kind of take lead wherever you want, but I think probably the most obvious place to start is kind of like, how the hell did you even get into this? I know you have a pretty interesting story, like where you started out from, and then where you ended up. So I don't know if you want to start there, and then we can kind of dig into it as we go.
So, you'd like to, keep a clean name and want everyone to know you're clean and everything. But when I was younger, when I was like 22, I got Orange County Sheriff's Department caught me smoking a marijuana cigarette. Yeah, a marijuana cigarette. And back then it was like, so they talked to me like, "You've never been arrested. You want to do some work for us?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." Because I thought marijuana, like, oh my God, I'm going to prison. Not like today.
Yeah.
So I was a clean guy, and I said, yeah, but I will not, rat out on anyone. I was an informant then. I wasn't criminal because I never got charged. I never even actually got the booking. So then I told them I would not set up any family members and any of my friends. And they, I was very savvy in the street. I knew a lot of people, knew the language, and you have to know a lot of different things to be able to do something like that. Sports, so on. So I went to work for them and did some stuff and caught some people's eyes. And then I owned a tree service at the time. So I was in a lot of people's yards, rich people. Then the IRS, through Orange County Sheriff's Department, introduced me to the IRS. And would you like to go to work for us as an investigator, civilian investigator? Just a lot of people don't report a lot of, as you know, don't report a lot of what they own. 3 boats, 5 cars, all that stuff. 2 houses instead of 1. So as I'm in these people's yards, I make notes of what they have, inventory. I'm in their yard. You become friends with them. Some of them would need to be. Then from there, they made the mistake, I think it was, of introducing me to the FBI at lunch one time. The IRS is, they all brag about, well, my guy will run around 5 miles naked for the IRS or whatever, or the police department, sheriff's department. So climb trees, because they knew I'd climb trees, hang upside down, I like to show off. So then they introduced me to the FBI, and then I started hiking a lot, training a lot, trying to infiltrate anti-government militias was the beginning for the FBI, about 96. looking for anti-government militias, not good militias, legal and everything, anti-government that want to cause harm to government buildings, post offices, government, but in the process, innocent people get hurt. So that's when I started training with them. I met Gary, the mountain guy, crazy mountain guy, years before he actually was taken down in 2002, 2003, whatever. And along the way, I met a lot of other people. You have to go through a lot of people to get your results. So along the way is when I met Sutton, Rick Springs, Mike Lawrence, some other area nations is also the Christian identity. And one of their churches is the Church of Jesus Christ Christian. Yes, I believe that's right. Church of Jesus Christ Christian. And Yahweh and Ishua and all that stuff. Reverend Jonathan Williams, I met him. He's out of Conyers, Georgia. Started training with some of these guys and hunting, things to survive, mainly survivalist stuff, growing chickens and eggs and plants and so on, hunting. So you have a lot of experiences with them and you have to do things. And they were in, some of them now, they were in the Satan worshiping, which I did not understand how Christians that say they're Christians, but they're racist and Adolf Hitler worshipers and all that. So some of them go with these Satan worshipers. And one night and over near Conyers, Georgia, out hunting, I was with, my main target was Gary the Mountain Man, not all these other people. We went hunting, killed a couple of deer. They cut the hearts out and praised Satan, and we ate, took bites out of the hearts, and I was scared to death. If you search me online, you'll see me with 16-foot snakes around my neck, wrestling alligators, swinging from trees. But I got to tell you, that was one of the scariest things I've ever been in my life, is that situation, because you don't know what's going to happen. If you get Satan involved, anything can happen.
Oh my gosh. And just to let Jose's viewers know that he's talking about, he's hunting with David Sutter, who was a right-wing extremist at the time. But if the name Sutter sounds familiar, it's because his son has kind of become infamous, like internet famous, as an FBI informant who runs a satanic bookstore in South Carolina. And since he's an informant, that means the Bureau is essentially, funding satanic literature. And so I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. David, did you know Mr. Sutter's son at all, or how they even became involved in Satanism in the first place?
So when you get involved with these people, the number one thing you don't do is ask a bunch of questions. You're just like, hey, I'm here, and you follow. So you don't ask questions about guns and weapons and ammunitions and explosives and terrorist acts and drugs and stuff like that. So you just hang out and you kind of gravitate, the FBI would always call it, towards this person and that person. But during I call it adventures with Gary, the crazy mountain man, you ran across different people several times, and sometimes all at the same events. So with Mr. Sutter, David, the senior, it was, I believe, 6 different times. Now, if you read one time, one time was when I just told you about the incident with the deer in the field and eating the hearts. And that, like I said, that confused me because there's Christian identity people there. And but you can't ask a lot of questions. And I'm not there for learning about racism and all that. I'm just trying to just get in with people and be close to them without asking a bunch of questions. That'll come later on. But I did meet David Sutton different times. The first time there, I believe twice in 2001 and possibly don't hold me to my dates because we're talking about a quarter century ago, at the Yale Redneck Shop in Lawrence, South Carolina, which I spoke on stage there once or twice. That was an adrenaline rush. And then once, I'm looking at my notes real quick. Hot Springs, North Carolina is when, if you've read my first book, in 2002 or 3 is when we're beside the river. We were training a bunch of times. Mr. Sutton guided us off. He was with us and led us off in the river. He didn't go down river with us, but me, Gary, the crazy mountain man, and others. That's when we went down the river, and about an hour and a half later at Sandy Bottom is when they told me about their plans, what they had for Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. So at that time is when the FBI made the move on Gary, the crazy mountain man. And I believe, see, you don't get informational rewards from the FBI. It's like one way. So when I get bonuses, I know I did something good, but they don't tell you what you did. But I believe that Sutton's son and Mr. Sutton, they didn't really get anything on David Sutton, but his son, I believe they were drawn in from the activities of what the people wanted to do in Orlando, Florida. And that might have been a cause of why Joshua Sutton got charged with the gun charge, because he was at that time a young man, 17, 18, 19, something like that. I had my investigative teammate, Joe, that was the same age, and he'd met Mr. Sutton also beside the river and so on when we were his son, the many times we trained. But I believe he got busted because of the work I started. And then I went on after that and moved on to the racist groups, the extremist groups, which were involved with the same groups I just told you I got out of.
And they all these groups would end up at Charlottesville. We'll get to that. I guess maybe, sorry, Jose, and if you have any questions now or.
No, I'm just enthralled. I mean, I would like to maybe, I guess I do want to pick to see if there's any elaboration to be had on the dynamics between the Christian Identity group and the Satanism groups, but it sounds like it might be squeezing water from trying to squeeze water from a stone, because I think we got all we could from you there, because that is fascinating that these two groups would interplay in such a friendly manner, but I have a very rudimentary understanding of Christian Identity, but it doesn't seem open to Satanism to me.
Well, what they were teaching, I'm a Southern Baptist, and what they were teaching, the Christian Identity groups, Aryan Nation, Rick Springs and the others, wasn't what I was taught in Sunday school. It wasn't.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. It's a weird, twisted take on.
So I couldn't waste too much time on that. I just had to gravitate and just become part of the group and be into what they're doing.
Right.
Observe and report, so to say. Now.
Sorry, can I interrupt you, David, and ask you just to back up real quick? Can you describe how you first infiltrated the Aryan nations? I read your book. It seems like you're leading kind of like a team of operatives. You talked about your buddy Joe, and this is 1996, and I don't have to remind viewers, this is right after the OKC bombing. I mean, is this a response to the bombing? Are they sending you in to make sure more stuff like that doesn't happen?
You flood the field at this point when something like that happens. So here we go with talking about, I don't want to throw the FBI under the bus, even though they threw me under the bus. Most people don't know I was exposed in my hometown newspaper as an FBI Nazi, which I was not, but I infiltrated the Nazis. And that's how it was. I was put on a gag order. I couldn't talk to media for a year. So I got exposed. I got thrown under the bus by the FBI for the greater cause. So what we're talking about after that happened, the bombing, the Oklahoma City bombing, Timothy McVeigh, they flooded the field. And at that point, if you even talked about sneezing and causing damage near a courthouse or a state courthouse or a library or something, you were going down. So they flood the field, and this is where they send in people to help people get arrested quicker than they would have, or maybe never would have. I know this is a sensitive subject, and I believe you wrote about some of it. I write about it some in my book. But yeah, so they send people in like myself and informants. They know where to go. The usual suspects, if you ever saw the movie, the usual suspects, they go round some people up and they rat some people out. Then they get those people, then they go after new members, get everyone as much as they can in the facial recognition program, start getting tag numbers. Then they go to people that are vulnerable and get them to do things. And then you have good people that are clean, that have never been in trouble before, and they help some people get arrested quicker than they would have. They might have been in trouble before, and now when you get with criminals, it's not very hard to talk them into doing things if that's their lifestyle. I'll elaborate on anything you hear me saying. It's just a funny line. I sent you that document I wrote about my resources and how we infiltrate and so on, and some of the laws that might be broken. And some people get upset with me because they've heard me talk briefly about it on Wolf Blitzer and Anderson Cooper and Good Morning America. But people say, well, that's wrong. That's wrong. Well, then I ask them, if your mother or your daughter or your sister was raped by one of these thugs, and you couldn't get them for that because it's embarrassing and it's hard to get a charge like that. But would you be upset if the FBI got someone close to them and brought that thug down that raped your mother, your daughter, your sister, or even killed your brother or father? And then their answer changes after that. I hate to speak so frankly. And sometimes the FBI has to do some hard things. I used to hunt pigs and deer, and I never went pig hunting and came back without mud on me. So when you go looking for these thugs, you got to go hardcore. And yes, constitutional rights may get violated. That's not for me to figure out. That's not my job. That's for the courts and so on. If their stuff was violated, then it gets thrown out. But anyone that I help send to prison, they plea bargained.
Right.
I got them on recording devices more than three times.
And so tell me about Gary the Crazy Mountain Man. In your book, this guy is like a Aryan Nations guy who's talking about forging an alliance with Al-Qaeda. Mind you, this is pre 9/11. So who was this? Do you know this guy's full name? You said he went down in the early 2000s.
No, I never got his full name. I was able to, if you read the book, I was able to get his picture through the driver license records that the FBI had. But first I had to go sit by the river and talk to a girl. Everyone goes rafting down the French Broad River. If you're in that area, you go whitewater rafting. Well, these guys, the day he told me, Gary and his crew told me about what they wanted to do. We were on to Orlando, Disney World. We were on the French Broad River rafting together. And that's when he said, y'all live, because I live in Orlando. He knew that. No one knows anyone's last name. It's like your first name or your nickname. Mine was Hunt. That's my middle name, and everyone called me Hunt. So you don't get last names, but I was able to get go to the girl, all-terrain images. She takes everyone's pictures that go by the river. I was able to go with the FBI posing as hikers, talk to her, get her website. Me and the FBI in the Asheville, North Carolina office sat there and went through her pictures that are cataloged by date and by hour. And boom, there was me halfway drowning with bouncing off of a rock and everything. And a couple of images later, there was Gary. Then the FBI ran his picture through the South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee driver's license offices and got his driver's license. Now I'm already back in Orlando after that. After we went looking for him, me and the FBI went on an adventure together to go find the guy, but we got his picture. But no, I never got his last name.
Okay, gotcha. And then your book, so it's the late 90s, you're infiltrating Aryan Nations, but then the next chapter of your book starts in like 2006. So I don't know. I'll let you, Jose, maybe you have a question. Otherwise, I'll let David continue where he thinks is important.
No, you can go for it. Yeah, I mean, I'm just listening. I'm on overload. There's so many different angles, but I feel like maybe it's a long story. We'll get to it.
So I drifted from the anti-government militias into the white power assignment, probably about 2002. Then I was fully into the white power groups from 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then I got exposed, I think 2007, March of something. So, but all these groups still hang out together. So it was easy to go from. So it wasn't Aryan Nations in the beginning. It was anti-government militias. It was just, they don't give you a target. So let's back up a little. So for the FBI to prosecute you the right way, they really can't show that they sent someone in looking for you specifically. Like what you're going after this guy specifically. So they send in a guy like myself, and I do what I do, go hiking, hang out. I might be in the area for 4 months, get to be known, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, looking for anti-government militia types. Then you start to meet some guys in the bar, like, hey, we've seen you around. They saw me down the river, whitewater rafting. Hey, you want to join with us? Start just whitewater rafting with them. They don't come out and say, hey, you want to blow stuff up with us? Not from the beginning. So you start hanging out with them. It takes a couple of years. So mainly I was strictly anti-government militias. Then along the way, you get confused if you think about all the different groups, because you got the anti-government militias hanging out with Aryan nations, hanging out with devil worshippers, hanging out with some Nazis and some skinheads, but they're all anti-government militias. Does that make sense? There's no book and there's no rules. It's all, but the reason they like to hang together because they believe they have the same beliefs of what they believe in, and they love private property. They love to have events on private property. It's not like you can go down to the local park and have a bunch of militant or anti-government militias there, or skinheads and so on. So then, at the same time, 97, 98, 99, 2000, I'm in the anti-government militias. I'm on television as a professional roller derby skater. I can skate outdoors on my inline skates faster than most people on their bicycles. To this day, I'm 56. To this day, because I get to work out every day since I'm retired. So they sent me, hey, David, check out the show. It was about money laundering to the television show from companies that were running the show to get rid of tax money they owed in taxes. So that was great. So at the same time, now imagine these. Now I got short hair now, but at this time I got long blonde hair, halfway down my back. So I was the Florida redneck, and all these people I'm infiltrating can see me on TNN, Turner, the Nashville network it was at the time, every Friday night. And I was the Florida redneck, and I was one of the stars. So they would show the promo of me swinging from the trees to Florida Tarzan, wrestling with alligators and kissing a Florida panther on the nose and not being afraid of anything. So that was perfect because it made it so easy when I go to these events, like, man, David, we saw him on television, because I was a redneck. I grew up, Florida redneck, riding horses. So that was so easy that I'm in such a great position with the anti-government militia. But they might send the FBI 50 guys like me, or girls, and knowing that not all of them are going to get in. And like sperm trying to get in the egg, only one gets in there. So they might it's not hard to infiltrate. I mean, it's not easy to do an initial infiltration once you get in, but I might, like I said, have to, for the anti-government militias, go hang out for a couple of years, go hiking all the time. You're talking about going up to the mountains, driving a lot, because I won't fly. I'm scared to death of flying, believe that or not. So you drive, you have your weapons and so on. You hate to go through that, the airlines and so on. So you just being seen. And if you screw up once in the initial infiltration, if they get nervous, like, oh, this guy is shaking, he's nervous, when you first talk to them, then you don't get invited to your first training with the militia and so on, or going down the Whitewater Rapids. So then I was on the TV show, 98, 99, 2000, then slipping once Gary the Mountain Man got rounded up, I think about 2002. Then I moved on to the racist groups. The first target was a man in Jasper, Georgia. And like I said, as a witness, you can't have the appearance of being sent in there. So you have to be with them for a little bit and act like friends. Then the FBI can legally or morally say, or in court say, no, he was with them 2 years before our investigation even started. Their investigation, not the civilian's investigation. So there's tricks they play and so on. And along the way, if I have another operative with me, and I violate a bunch of laws, but this guy, he stays clean as a witness, then I don't get to testify in court, but this guy does. You see what I'm saying?
Interesting.
I'm tagged a hostile witness, and I don't get to testify. Well, like in the Donald Trump case, they didn't let some of the witnesses testify, and that destroys a case a lot of times. I mean, if that's your last hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it don't get to go, because if you read some federal documents, if you research the transcripts of when Tom Martin, John Rock got arrested, many times, and they're saying David Gletty was selling us drugs. David Gletty was, leading us. David Gletty was putting these ideas in our head. But in the end, they plea bargained. So what did it?
Right. And it seems like a lot of these tactics that you're describing are now, they're not, the FBI isn't just using them on neo-Nazis, they're using them against mainstream Trump people. And I'm definitely curious as to your thoughts on that. We'll get to that. But you said one thing I have to ask you about. The FBI actually set you up with your roller derby gig to help your cover. Is that, would I hear that correctly?
So I'm not sure, they don't tell you that. I thought it was to investigate Roller Jam, but I think that could have been part of the process of getting me well known, because you like to take shortcuts. So the FBI looks as it, I'm a tool. I was a tool. I hated that word. I never understood it, but I understand it now. I was a tool in the shed. Mm. So I got my shed by itself, and I've got a shovel, and I got an axe, and I got a pick, and I got a saw, and chains, and all this. But this other guy, he's got a couple of things. I've got more than that. This operative has in his shed. I know I can do sports. I can do the lingo. I used to own a tree service. I can do all this. I can surf. That allows me to fit in more than a guy that has less things in his shed. So yes, I was a tool. So I believe they use that asset as a skater.
Okay. But did they actually send you to acting school or embed you or?
So you get sent to some special schools they have, which are I call them schools, but they're a person's home that are former operatives, counselors, stuff like that. And you go visit with them, and they teach you how to look someone straight in the eye. Don't blink. You can manipulate where am I trying to go? I want to be careful. I don't want to go to jail tomorrow. It's important to win the game. Let's say that. You want to be on the winning team, Mr. Gletty, or the losing team? You want to get the trophy, or you don't want to get the trophy? There's certain things you have to do. There's certain things we expect from you. The law is not the law. There's 10 different truths. There's the accused's truth. There's the operative's truth. There's the law enforcement's truth. There's the judge's truth. There's the investigator's truth. There's all these other truths. And then there's God's, the real truth. So that's how it was explained to me, is that the truth isn't always the truth. So there's certain things you need to do. So you need to act. When people get up in your face and shove you and call you out when you're getting into the skinheads, that was crazy. Or the Nazis, that's the first thing they do is get up and butt heads with you, and you can't back down. You have to know, they teach you how to, the teachers, the ones I'm talking about, they teach you how not to sweat like that. They teach you how to lie. They teach you how to keep track of your stories. The biggest thing is the more truths you tell, the less lies you have to keep up with. So my real name was used. I didn't care because I had a plan. I did have a plan. It was from the work I did, become a private investigator, open up David Gletty Investigations, write my first book or two. And then that was the plan. So when you do work like this, unless you're a criminal informant, you have to have a plan. It's about the adrenaline rush and the money and so on, but what are you going to do after you're out? It doesn't last forever. You can only do so much undercover work. So you have to have a plan. So I had a plan. So I was all in. They saw I was ripe for the picking, the FBI, and knew I would jump on any bull they gave me. So yes, I admit I've lied, cheated, I stole for the FBI, I sold drugs for them, recorded illegally for the FBI. There's different now. You don't need this is how it was explained to me. If I'm going to wear a recording device, not a transmitter, I've never, ever, you do not wear a transmitting device. You'll get busted. You just wear a recording device. They don't need a search warrant if the recording is just for intelligence purposes, not to be used as evidence in court. If it's going to be used as evidence, then they need me to sign off on a search warrant saying I'm wearing the device that they're allowing me to wear to go record for this certain. So yes, I was trained by former agents and operatives on how to get things done.
Got it. And how?
It's a tough situation to talk about. Not ever want to talk about it, but people say, well, how can you? Well, I was exposed. So what do I got to lose? I was exposed in my hometown newspaper. I'm a loner anyways, but I don't have any friends. You think people want to hang out with me? Everyone smokes pot. So they think, he's going to rat me out for smoking pot. Oh my God, or moonshine. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
I'm a good old boy, but so I don't have any friends. I have 2 friends, and they both worked with me for the FBI. Fred, the communications guy, and Joe, the plumber. They're still good friends to this day. So, so it didn't ruin my life in the beginning. When I got exposed in 2007, you think it's over. Oh my God, what am I going to do? But you wait it out and things work out. Unfortunate for me, I got ran over after I was exposed in 2007 in March. 8 weeks later, after me, Joe, and Fred went hiking the Appalachian Trail, that was my vacation after getting exposed. Come home, I go for an easy bike ride. Usually I haul ass, go as fast as I can. I get hit by a truck. I got a scar. Right here. I got a titanium plate in my neck. I got hit by a 6,000-pound truck that ran the red light. I was on the recreation trail. I got hit, broke my neck, collapsed lung, so on. And I was sitting there in the middle of the highway next to my bike. The wheel was spinning. And I was thinking one of these groups got me. Like, oh my God. It was only 8 weeks after being exposed in my hometown newspaper. And I'm laying out in the middle of the highway, a couple miles from my house, and thought that they got me. It was just some guy, that former Army guy that was in a bad mood, wasn't paying attention. But so no, you do take sacrifices. You know that things never got hurt working undercover. It was just odd that it happened afterwards. But you do fully expect something could happen. So you have to be trained on escape measures. They didn't really like operatives and informants, of course, carrying firearms. But I always, as much as I could, I carried my firearms. Some events that you went to, you just could not. When I went to one Nazi rally up in Toledo, Ohio in 2005, when the first one was in September and 13 Nazis went up there and got things out of control, and the black community was burning ambulances and houses and just causing harm because some hate groups came in there and started some stuff on purpose. Then they had another one in the same town, and I went to that one. And that one was crazy. That was my first Nazi protest I ever went to. That opened my eyes to that type. But yeah, there's certain things, you could always get in trouble. Me and my partner, Joe, and Fred always talked about my teammates. If we ever walk in a room, we joked, if you ever walk in a room and it's covered with plastic, run. Just go. Like when they paint a house, a room, it's all covered in plastic. When the mob used to wrap you up in the carpets and so on when they took care of you. So now there are certain things you have to be careful. You can't tell your mother that you work undercover because mom's going to be on the phone. Oh, my son, I'm so proud of him. He worked for the FBI. Yeah, my sister's the only one in my family knew. So when I got exposed, it was a big deal for a little while. I'm all over the news, CNN, my hometown newspaper. It was a big deal because at the time, the FBI, just before that, was having me put on Nazi protests. And there was Nazi protests going on across the country that were handled by the FBI and operatives like myself. And that when I took this step out there, because I had to get the permits in my name, if you check the records, the permits for the Orlando, Florida Nazi protest in 2005 was in my name. And I was all over the newspaper, and people that knew me was like, oh my God, what happened to David Gletty? I used to go out with him in high school. You know, my mom's like, David, what the happened to you? I just saw the newspaper, you're having a Nazi protest. I didn't raise you like that. And I was all in. That was the first time, you know, when you get your picture in the newspaper as a Nazi and you're having a Nazi protest, you're all in. I had events at my home that I still live in. I have 2 homes on my property. So I had many Nazi events here. So I've got pictures of Bill White on my property 3 times, videos in my home in the back. Many of the members, Rick Springs, which is now a known FBI informant, operative, whatever, bank robber from area nations. So I've had a lot of these people at my homes. I was at their homes, but you have to be trained correctly to move. You know, if you get kicked out, if you mess up once in your infiltration and you ask too many questions and get caught writing down tag numbers, you're not getting paid anymore. Your job's over. How do you tell the FBI, man, I got kicked out? I caught taking tag numbers and they kicked me out. Well, you're probably not going to get another assignment. So as an operative, you have to, now informants, they can screw up left and right because they've got ties, deep ties with these groups, and they've been to prison with them. And I was there, bro. But as the new guy, you have to walk a tightrope. So when you ask about, you know, last names, you just really don't ask. All that stuff will come to you. Might take me 2 years, but all that stuff will come to you. So yeah, you have to be careful and you have to be trained. But the FBI has to be careful to show that you weren't a witness sent in to make them, to talk them into committing crimes, just to get them off the street. But a lot of times the FBI would want results. They want you to go in and cause trouble. And, you know, so with these skinheads, Confederate Hammerskins, if you ever heard of them.
We talked about them in relationship to, they were at Charlottesville.
They're one of the most violent racial groups in the Southeast. And in the end, after the white power movement, getting into the white power movement, that's when the FBI said, took about a year for them to say, okay, David, you've met certain benchmarks along the way with what you've gathered, your information, and the right people you're with. Your main target's to Confederate Hammerskin. So I was hanging out with the Nazi groups before that. I already made my big name with having the Orlando protest and Jeff Shoup, the leader of which is a big operative also. I'm like, damn, everyone's an operative. The FBI is behind everything, and I'm telling the truth. If you have 10 people at a meeting, 8 of them are somehow involved with the FBI. So be careful, people. Mm-hmm. Only talk to yourself.
Yeah. Well, with that, I guess, I don't know, Ken, if you have a different route you want to take, I'd kind of like to hone back in on the protests a little bit. You said your name was on the permits. I'm just kind of wondering, I mean, maybe Ken has a different angle he wants to take it. Just kind of curious, is this what you think is standard operating procedure or something they train you guys to do in this way? Maybe because they think because you are a private citizen or whatever, there's a step removed. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Or I don't know if, Ken, if you have something to add to that before.
It's a great question.
Yeah. So like I said, back to, remember I said tools in the shed? Some people don't have a lot of tools, so they just hang out and listen, collect information, but they don't really like a turtle. You know, I'm out there. As you can see, I'm an excitable guy. So I'm out there. I can lead people. So I believe they took advantage of all the tools I had. And this guy's all out, man. He'll run down the street a mile and get donuts for me. Well, they brag about you like that. FBI agents in Orlando and other cities are always close to the sheriff's deputies, intelligence officers, because they work together. You know, here in Florida and here in Orlando, Florida, it's called the MBI, the Metropolitan Bureau of Investigation. And it's a mixture of FBI agents, Orange County deputies, Seminole County deputies, some Orlando Police Department deputies, and they're all in intelligence. So they all get together and they brag about their guys. Like, man, this guy, David, he'll do anything. He'll have a Nazi protest for me, not care about his name being slandered, not care about, you know, being thrown under the bus. He'll do it. So they look at what they got, like a chessboard. You got pawns, you got knights, you got rooks, king, queen, bishops, and each one can do different moves. And I don't see, I'm just a pawn. I like to think I was a badass knight or bishop, and I think I was a pawn. which kind of hurts my feelings, but whatever. So I can't see. I'm a dumb old pawn. I think I'm smart, but I can only go here and here and here. I can't. That's all I can do. But they know they can look back and see the whole board. So I don't know, like you said, roller derby, roller jam that I was in. I didn't know that that's probably what they used that for, was to get me such credibility. And then infiltrating the white power groups, going from the TV show and the anti-government militias, it made it so much easier to infiltrate the white power groups. And I was like, because they're already intermingled. So people would say, wow, David Gletty's been on television. FBI agents don't smoke pot and they don't hang from trees upside down. Because I would since I knew how to do trees, I would go to these leaders, Richie Myers of the Confederate Hammerskins and Kobe Stonecipher, and trim trees in their home and hang upside down 60 feet in the air. FBI agents don't do that. So there's certain things you had to do to get past that. But so I believe the FBI they use you and they have you do certain things at the time. It's like, what the hell? But then it moved you further. And I was just a piece on the board, the chessboard. But yeah, I can sit back now and I believe the FBI let me get exposed in the newspaper for a purpose. I was kind of done anyways. What else could I do? After becoming a Nazi for the FBI and being on television, how do you fix that? For me, it was fun. It was like surfing big waves. But so they let me get exposed in the newspaper to send shock waves. Like I was in a lot of these people's homes. So they're like going through the walls, because we had parties and there was cocaine and some stuff. And I'm in these people's homes and it comes out that now I'm a big operative. And so they're going through their walls looking for recording devices and their cars. And David Gletty played with my kids and my dog. And that's another trick to use. That if the kids and the dogs like you, when you infiltrate these people, if they got kids and dogs, you bring dog treats and candy. Not to sound like a pervert, or don't get me wrong, please, folks. But if you can have the kid, because everyone says, well, if the dog or the kids don't like you, something's wrong with you. So a lot of these people had kids and dogs, and I'd be on the trampoline with the kids. The parents are over there doing whatever, and the kids and the dogs like you. So there were shortcuts to take. Sleeping with one of the guys you're trying to infiltrate, Kobe Stonecipher of the Confederate Hammerskins. I might have to sleep with this ugly sister, but that's a shortcut. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Like, damn, you made my sister feel so good the last couple of weeks. I think she's fallen in love with you. And she's fat and ugly. Nothing against fat and ugly girls. I don't want to cause problems with the show, but this girl was ugly. So there's things you have to do. And the FBI sees what you have, sees what you've done. Some things, if you get in trouble with the FBI, because it was harder to deal with the FBI agents than it was infiltrating the criminal groups. Mm-hmm. They're trusting you if you lied and never to tell them you lied. If you manipulated a situation, never tell them. Once you tell a story, you stick to your story. Never, ever change your story because you're done. Your word has to be gold. So that no one really knows, because the agent's not there. Your handler's not there. They might hear things from other people, but if something happens and like, oh my God, David did 10 lines of cocaine last night at Kobe's house. And there was a rule, don't overindulge. That was like, what's over 3 lines, and that's about it. So if they're like, oh my God, David did 10 lines, but it's my word against some guys that were in prison, the FBI kind of just looks at you cross-eyed and like, just keep your story. Because they want results. And when you go to the FBI office, I'm getting stirred up now. When you go to the FBI office, I get walked in the back door with a couple agents. You kind of get disrespected. That's the part I hated. Like you're just, they're out there like, oh man, you're doing such good work. But when you come to the office, it's all these guys in suits and ties, and they're all talking legal language. Not like what they talk to you, like, oh bro, man, everything's cool. And then they're talking to their buddies, the agents. So you get into the office, There's audio recordings, video recordings. They have to tell you straight up, we need everything to be done by the rules. We can't do this. We can't do that. We need some results. But then when they walk me out in the parking lot to my car, there's no video or audio recordings out in the parking lot. And that's when they tell you, look, we need results. We need to send shockwaves. We need you to do this. I don't care what it takes. And then there's certain things about recording devices you're taught that can be manipulated. A recording device, I don't transmit, so there's not a GPS on any recording device I ever wore, so it's not going to transmit. So it does not know where it's at. It's relying on me to tell the recording device that's going to be used as intelligence or evidence against the subject in the future. The recording device is relying on me to tell it what time it is, the date, where I'm going, and who I'm going to be with. Then I got to let the thing run entirely if it's going to be used as evidence. Entirely. Then when I'm leaving 5 minutes later after I'm clear of everything, give the time and date and da-da-da-da-da. But I can actually, you could tell a different time and date. If there's no GPS on it, and the FBI they don't go down the Radio Shack and buy their equipment, but they make their own. They have some techno gurus in each office. And I swear to God, they'll take a regular buck knife that works and put a microphone in it. And when I go to use it, I pull a little string and it pulls the internal on switch. And then it runs it has 9 hours of recording. Excuse me. There's no way to turn it off, but a buck knife. So I wore that up to the old redneck shop many times, hunting with the guys, training with the guys. So they make recording devices look like you're on your set of car keys, the remote control. So when my car is rigged up, my SUV, when we go, oh my God, I drove to Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, Arizona, Tennessee, you name the state in the Southeast, and even the I've been there. I mean, the Northeast. I hate driving anymore. It's hard to get me in a car. I drove so much. So your car is rigged up with the recording devices. So you use the key, the electronic controller on your keys to turn the recording device on and off. What sucks is sometimes you can't control what other people are going to say on the recording device. I'm not saying this ever happened or this is true, but a couple of times someone might have. Now, in some of these groups, skinheads and Nazis, oh my God, smoking pot is like Satan. Like, oh my God. They do cocaine and speed and methamphetamines and steroids, but oh my God, if they found out you smoke pot. So you might have to go off and sneak off in the group to smoke when you're in an event. So then a couple of days later, if I'm with a couple of the guys that were there and they happen to come up and say, oh, David Gletty, that was some good stuff we smoked the other day. Stuff like that just makes you cringe. And you know that in about 2 weeks, you're going to hear from it because it takes your handler about 2 weeks to process your recordings after you do it. And then he comes back. I might be on the golf course and here in Orlando and get a phone call from Agent Kevin Farrington, like, dude, what was on that recording? Well, I'm playing golf. I don't give up. You come here right now. And I'd have to leave and go see and get the rules read to me. Well, there were no rules, but they would there's rules and there's things you have to follow. And if it shows that people accuse you, if they get arrested, if they accused you of smoking marijuana or using cocaine with them, you might blow the whole case. So but then each time they would yell at you and you realize, because they could arrest you and they call it just do a walkthrough, they call it. Then you're arrested. Now you're working for free. If they thought you're not going to get criminally charged, but now you're not getting paid. You're working for free because you might have crossed the line. But if you got something good going on, you can break the rules. I can send you court records, or you could check them yourself. Bluntsville, Alabama, 2005, September 17th, I got arrested. I was on my way to a Klan rally, and it's in my chapter. It's called Alabama Slammer in my book, Undercover Nazi. So I was going to a Klan rally, and I had 2 days to spare in Blunsville, Alabama. And my sister happened to live in Blunsville, Alabama, and I was going to a Klan rally in Jackson, Alabama, about 50 miles away, but I had to wait 2 days. Well, being a guy that can't wait and sit still, I got to go running. Well, no one exercises in Alabama. No one runs in Alabama. So I'm running, and cops pull me over. Deputy Scott Hall pulls me over. What's going on? Like, I'm exercising. He's like, nobody exercises. What are you doing? They're suspicious. So he goes on. Well, the next day, I went and met some skinheads at a bar, and some Mexicans happened to get beat down pretty bad by the group I was with. So the next day I'm exercising again, and the same cop sees me, and like, I fit the description. I had a tan. Everyone else was like super white. So I'm the only tan guy that the bartender said. So I couldn't lie. So I said, yeah, I was there. And then I got arrested. Then I had my firearm on me, and they were a small little jail that didn't even have a cell in it. They handcuffed me to an oak chair, and they were going to charge me with. So then finally I said, dude, you got to call this number. I'm working undercover. So then they were going to charge me with, well, that was the original charge, was impersonating a federal law enforcement officer with a firearm. That's a big deal. So then finally they called Agent Kevin. I gave him the phone. There's an emergency number. You call, you tell them to call. And then that made them more pissed off, the police chief more pissed off, that he thought I was investigating him and his police. They didn't know why is an FBI guy here, in their town. So then he wouldn't let me go. Agent Kevin Farrington told him to let me go. He wouldn't let me go. I had to sit in jail for 18 hours in Blunsville, Alabama. And then the next morning, Birmingham FBI came and picked me up for Agent Kevin Farrington, which was kind of embarrassing. Picked me up, put me on a Greyhound bus, which is even more embarrassing. I don't think I've ever rode on a Greyhound bus. 2 agents walked me on the bus to make sure, because I was in trouble. They got me out. In the end, there was no charges. It just says you're an arrest with no conviction. But that's a serious crime. If you look at it, wow, how does someone get charged with impersonating an FBI officer with a firearm, and the charges are dropped within 18 hours? That would make the suspicious mind like, wow. So the FBI puts me on the bus, because now they're shipping me back home to Alabama via Greyhound bus. And FBI agents in black suits walked me on the bus, and everyone moved. No one would sit next to me, because they knew the police officers were seating me down, and everyone heard what was said. So no one would sit next to me on the bus, because they didn't know what was going on. So that was embarrassing. But yeah, I did. Now, it didn't cost me any pay, and but I thought my career was over at that time. But things went on, and I got bigger with NSM, then moving on to the Confederate Hammerskins. Yeah, but that was a crazy 2 days being arrested in like a really.
It sounds like it. And you just mentioned the name of your handler, Special Agent Kevin Farrington. And I'll just let viewers know that Kevin Farrington is the Assistant Special Agent in charge of Denver's field office now, meaning he's the second in charge in Denver. So he's risen quite a way. And, don't want to get you in trouble. What would Kevin think about you saying all this stuff now?
So when I did my first interview in 2009, after my book was released, Undercover Nazi, the FBI Infiltration of Extremist Groups in America by David Gletty, did my first interview with Wolf Blitzer. Boy, that was a good interview. It was like 7 minutes or something, just talking about how the groups operate, how they bring kids in, indoctrinate them, and so on. And then after that interview, I was called to even though I was on standby, I couldn't infiltrate or do any work for the FBI except for give them information at that point, because they were waiting on more court cases and so on. So I was on standby. So 2009, I was still working for them in a standby mode, just giving them information on other stuff. They called me in after the Wolf Blitzer was my first interview. Sorry. called me in and read me the riot act. Like, and another agent that I never met before, some young kid I need to see your license. I need to run a check on you, wants and warrants. I'm like, what the hell, guys? And Agent Kevin was like a different guy, like not the guy who, like the lizard that changed colors. Read me the riot act. He's like, I hope this is your last interview. I hope you got your last adrenaline rush. If something happened, if you do another interview, you don't know what could happen. You're a PI now. You like that license? They threatened me. And so I'm like, well, damn, I got to do the next interview. When I was leaving the office, I was so pissed off. I'm like, you know what? I am going to do the next interview, which happened to be Anderson Cooper. I've done 15 interviews with Wolf Blitzer and 15 with Anderson Cooper. So since I was fresh in the mind of CNN, I called Wolf Blitzer's producer and oh yeah, Anderson Cooper would love to have you on. And then 3 days later, I did Anderson Cooper. Nothing happened, and I did another interview. And 60 interviews later, they don't really read the riot act no more.
This will be the one they whack you for.
Probably. Now I have gotten in trouble with them for using the FBI seal and using intimidation tactics to get results in my investigative agency with some high profile investigations. And like 3 years ago, an agent called me because I got a guy fired. My job is to get people fired that are causing problems at work or doing things they can't or shouldn't be doing, maybe stealing company funds, but they can't really prove it. But they need the guy to go. They can't get out because of contract or a union. Well, there's other things that do. Hence, you hire David Gletty Investigations, former FBI operative, and I'll get the person fired. So I use some, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you what I did. Well, wait a minute now. Let me think. Okay. Well, I have to check. I have to make sure my agency is going to be protected. So if I've heard rumors, if someone, a neighbor or someone, tells me rumors about a subject that I'm investigating, says, well, I've heard rumors that he's a child molester and he molested a 9-year-old girl in the next neighborhood over. Well, if I heard it, I can write it down as just as I heard it. That is not fact, but I heard it. So now I can take that and I can build a website on the person. Say, John Doe, lives at this address. This is what his neighbor said, that he's heard that he's a child molester and that they haven't been able to prove it yet. So it's a possibility that he might be arrested for molesting a child. Now there's a website. Now I go and have Vistaprint and have 1,000 business cards printed up for $35 with your name, your website that I just built you for free, but you're the subject I'm checking out, and start passing out these business cards to your neighbor. So if you're employed by someone, human resources, your boss, if you're self-employed, some of your clients. Now, it's some bad stuff this person did. So now your neighbors and people that know you are checking out the website built by an investigator, former FBI operative, and they're just seeing all these rumors, but it gets in their head, like these criminals putting a seed in their head. Like, my God, my children go over there and swim in his pool. Now his life's going to be disrupted. And he's going to want to get with me. And there's different stages. Anger that the person's going to go through. Denial. They're going to get scared. Then they're going to want to fix the problem. And then that's where they get with me. And then they work out a deal with their employer for me to go away and for them to work out their issue that they have going on, which is termination of employment. So I've used a bunch of in the FBI because I would use their name, and I'm not afraid to put Agent Kevin's, and he'll tell you, I haven't spoke to him in forever. I've texted him, I email him, I call him all the time, tell him, thank you. I'm doing so good because of you. Because I really love the guy. He really helped me out with my career, but it was like working with Satan. But yeah, so I would get in trouble for using authority that I guess I didn't have, or intimidation from the work I did for the FBI. Because if you're human resources and you've heard something and this investigator, and then you Google my name, you're going to be like, oh my God, this guy's like, and he does all these media interviews I don't want my company anywhere near his subject. So I've gotten in trouble a couple of times. I haven't gotten arrested and been fined or anything, but I've had agents call me and like, dude, you're way over the line, Mr. Gletty.
Well, you certainly have a lot of courage to be talking about this stuff. And as I mentioned before, it seems like the FBI is using a lot of these tactics on mainstream MAGA groups. And you strike me as kind of a conservative, Trump supporting type of guy. So I'm wondering, why haven't you come out as a whistleblower, and why aren't you talking to more like congressmen and people like that? And I'll tie that in. What's your take on like January 6th in Charlottesville? Or did the FBI set those up, do you think?
So, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but from the work I've done and what I've had protests, there's the evidence all over the place. I've had protests. I've done the same thing. So yes, it's not unreasonable for the reasonable mind to say, yes, the FBI initiated these events, knowing that things could get, I know if there's a hornet's nest, I can control that thing initially. I can poke a couple holes in it and run, but I can't control all the wasps and hornets that are going to cause, and they're going to do what they do and hurt innocent people around that wasn't even involved when I poked the holes in the thing. So it's so easy to get people involved with activities that they probably wouldn't have done on their own, but they get a couple leaders that they trust, like myself and others that have infiltrated them, and they trust them and like, let's do it. And then they go out. Well, hence, perfect example. And you can read court documents, transcripts from when they started rounding up some of the first hammerskins that I infiltrated, Tom Martin and John Rock. And you can read the transcripts to where, first of all, Agent Kevin's under oath, Agent Kevin Farrington swearing that I did such great work for them, many different cases for many years and all with great results. But it also states in there that they believed the lawyers for John Rock and Tom Martin, that I manipulated them. I took advantage of the situation. I read the room, so to say, because at the end, me and these hammerskins were going around robbing drug dealers dressed as law enforcement officers. And that's when the FBI brought down Tom Martin, John Rock, and some others. And I was there with them. And I might have put that seed in their head 6 months ago before the event happened. We did it several times, and the FBI is like, okay, let's round them up. But they would, crack dealers, skinheads would call them on a Friday, meet up, grab some crack or cocaine or whatever. It's not uncommon to go back again all through the night. So about their third trip, then they would throw down on their drug dealers and take their gold, any weapons or cash or drugs. So that was a plan by the FBI to put that in their head to commit that when they needed to be committed, knowing that these guys were just knowing how they're always hurting for money. So a lot of these groups, like the skinheads I infiltrated, Confederate Hammerskins, Richie Myers was his leader. He owned a tile and marble shop and granite shop here in Orlando, Florida, and employed nothing but Confederate Hammerskins. So I got in with them guys, and it was tough because them and the Nazis didn't get along. And I went to the Nazi group first. Then the FBI told me to get with the Confederate Hammerskins. That wasn't easy, but the way in was they loved the fight train. So I was able to start fight training with them because having the Orlando protest pissed them off, and they came to see me because they were like, why are you in my our community having a Nazi protest? Because Nazis and skinheads don't really get along. They hate each other. So I'm like this new guy. So finally I got him in the Confederate Hammerskins. Then I can read, that was my main target. Then I can read each individual, find out what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are. I can form a crew with some of them because you always wanted a crew to roll around with that loved you and trusted you. Otherwise, you're more likely to get your ass kicked by these other groups if I don't have a crew with me. So Tom Martin and John Rock thought I was cool, and some others hang out with me. We'd go to all the events together. They rode to Michigan 2 times with me, South Carolina, many different events. And for me, it was protection, but they didn't know I was using them, gaining intelligence on them, figure out the weakest point so that when we went down to arrest them, we would be able to arrest them when and where and how we wanted to. And that's what happened. A seed that was put in their head 6 months prior, finally, it was around the Super Bowl of 2007 or something, when like, Dave, we need to go. Agent Kevin Farrington was doing Super Bowl duty since he was in Orlando, Florida. He had to go down to Miami, Florida for Super Bowl duty. And now these guys are ready to rock and roll on the plan that was put together. And I had to hold them off for like 10 days. It was crazy. That was a hard thing to do. You see what I'm saying? There was no way it was going to go down without Kevin, Agent Kevin here, supervising it all, because it was his it was his rodeo. So I had to hold him off, and these guys were like ready to go. Then when we did go, we were able to arrest them in action. I had to do the drug deal with them. I had to get arrested. The cops pointing their guns at everyone. SWAT team actually came in from Tampa, Florida, FBI. Here's a quick side story. I'm going to tell the truth. It's going to piss some of the FBI off, but you can read the newspapers. Orlando Sentinel wrote a story about it. So when the arrest happened, one SWAT team member shot his own foot off in the yard of Tom Martin. The day before, I'm giving a briefing at the FBI Maiden, Florida office, and 40 people, agents and SWAT team and everyone that's going to be involved with the takedown. So I'm giving there's a blackboard here, and I'm like, guys, I'm explaining, I'm not one of these guys. I don't know what you heard, because a lot of agents don't know who's informants and operatives or whatever. So I'm being very clear to everyone that look at me. This is me. Don't rough me up. Please try not to point your gun at me. And there's a couple officers laughing over here, and I stopped, and it's a civilian. I was reprimanding them the best I could. That this is serious, guys. I'm involved. I'm at the other end of your guns. All of you guys, the SWAT team, I'm at the end of your guns. Please, this is serious. The next day, that officer shot his foot off, and I'm not glad about it. It was just odd that the same guy and I got reprimanded. They're like, "What? You can't do that." Excuse me. I believe it was an officer. I can't remember his first name. It was a Spanish name, a Gonzalez or something. It was in the paper. Then it went away, but it was a sad thing that happened. Tom Martin's yard's really nasty, and there's garbage in the front yard, Pine Hills, Florida, at the time. So when the officers were going through with their guns drawn, because Tom was arrested at a different location at his home. He was just coming out to join me and Rock and the others that had already robbed the drug dealers at gunpoint, posing as law enforcement officers. Tom was coming out to join us for the next one. So when he came out, he had like his tactical gear on, and he had his firearm, and they busted him coming out. But that's when they moved on him, the officer had accidentally shot himself in the foot and had his right foot amputated. So bad things happen like that. There's a lot of stress, like I was saying. Their guns are pointing at me also. Then, after the arrest happened, I went down. I got arrested also just to put on a show, and they put me in the police car. Seminole County Sheriff's Department handled FBI police housing at the time for the jail. So Seminole County's there, and they put each individual person arrested in a different car. But I'm left there. I'm handcuffed in the back of the car, and they forgot about me. Agent Kevin, I'm looking out the window, and I'm kind of screaming after 10 minutes. They were all high-fiving and good job. And the other people arrested are gone. They forgot about me. So I'm in the back of the car for 20 minutes, mad. Because I'm missing out on the party, which was my party, I thought. I'm kind of proud. I'm proud of the work I did. And I like to brag. I'm a bragger. Only about stuff I did. If I say I wrestled alligators, you can go on YouTube and damn sure see it. If I said I swing from trees, you can go on YouTube, see me swing from trees. If I say I've done many interviews with the media, Wolf Blitzer, you can go on the internet and find me and say, oh, wow, he's not lying. So I like to brag because I can do it. So I was in the back. I was pissed. Like, man. Finally, Agent Kevin, I saw him go. He remembered, and he came over and let me out. I was mad. And then they calmed me down, and he took me to Wendy's to eat and so on. And that was like that was like the end of my FBI career. Besides being put on hold, I still got paid. I'm cease and desist pretty much. And I'm just there for information if I have to testify against someone or anyone. And yeah, so it was kind of hurt. It was sad because I knew that was like the end, the adrenaline rush. Imagine NASCAR drivers or IndyCar drivers, 200 miles an hour all day long, and all of a sudden they stop 0 miles an hour. And that's hard to process. Your emotions are going, your adrenaline's going, and a lot of people don't understand it. When I was in and I was a leader, I'm proud. I'm on an adrenaline rush, and I'm playing the game. It's a game. It's been going on before I was born between cops and robbers. And I was in the game, and I love the Constitution, which is for everyone, gay, straight, Christian, non-Christian, no matter what color you are. The Constitution of the United States of America, mainly the Bill of Rights, is for everyone. If you afford the same rights to others. But when you violate those rights and you hurt other people and you don't allow others to have the constitutional exercises that you give yourself, that's when people like myself come in and we cause harm and we wreak havoc on these people that are causing harm to others and not affording them the same Bill of Rights that they have. So I get fired up about that. That's why I love the work I did and still do. So it's easy to, so I was proud and I was in it. And that's why I could be such a good member and have people believe me, because I could, speak their language and, adapt. Part of infiltration is adapting like animals do, like a chameleon, and knowing when and what not to do and when to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun.
Well, David, we've kept you, I think, over 20 minutes past when we were planning on letting you go. But I think we were just all enjoying the conversation, and you just kept going. I mean, we'd love to keep going if you want to. But if not,
I can do another 15 minutes.
Okay, because I have at least one more question. I guess I'll ask it now, and then if Ken has any other questions after that. I guess we kind of did want to broach your take on like Bill White. I do want to read this excerpt from an article I read when his take when he found out that you were working for the FBI. He said if he was being sponsored by the FBI, then American National Socialism has a lot to thank the FBI for. I'm just curious your thoughts on that, especially kind of looking back in your career and then kind of where things have turned out now, where we kind of have alluded to that. It seems like some of these events have happened in recent. Like January 6th, Charlottesville, stuff like that. It seems like there might be more going on. Do you think maybe it got a little bit carried away at some point, or
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that?
So, like I said, you saw how excited I was being in it. So I might get a little overzealous, but I'm exactly what they want you to be as a legal citizen that's not a criminal working for them. You got the tools in the shed. So you're kind of like-minded with what they want accomplished. So when it comes to Charlottesville, I believe it's easy to get some people together. There were a lot and march through the streets with the burning tiki torches. It's easy to get people to Nazi protests like I had. It's easy to get groups together if you have time, like January 6th. That's such a deep hole. But I've done manipulation and I've controlled people. That's a big scale there. I've done it on a small scale. But I've controlled, behavioral control. I know if I go up to a Puerto Rican guy and tell him his mom's a piece of shit, I'm controlling his next behavior. Even though I know it's bad, but I'm controlling his next behavior. I know he's going to swing at me and we're going to be causing a problem wherever we're at. No offense to Puerto Rican people or nothing. I'm just using that example. But so you can get the right people, the right leaders in place, and if you have the time, it's not hard to put something together. People will love. There's a lot of followers that just follow the crowd anywhere. Just, wow, this looks exciting. A perfect example is when I was infiltrating the Confederate hammerskins and the Nazis. They like to have parties, and young girls, 16, 15-year-old girls with pink and purple hair would like to show up, just curious, or young men, the same age, 15, 16, just curious to see what's happening. Next thing you know, They like it because they're not doing good at home. They're not doing good at school. They're outcast of society, so to say. They're good kids. They're now looking for some place to fit in. And now these groups, come on, we love you. Come hang out with us. And they get involved with these groups, and then they might start committing some crimes with them, or even the girls doing prostitution because the groups got them hooked on drugs. So now they're doing prostitution. So that happens in these groups. So it's easy to draw in people. If the criminals groups do it, or if an FBI operative or an agent, usually though the agents kind of stay clear, they let the other people do the dirty work. No disrespect, but their hands have to stay really clean. They're the legal aspect, But yeah, it's easy to, if you have time, to round up and get some things going. And with January 6th, I believe it could have been prevented. I don't believe Trump had anything to do with them storming the Capitol. I believe it was just people fired up, agitators. You saw how easy it was for agitators to get these pro-Hamas, anti-Israel kids protesting at their own college. And I'm not saying I'm for that or against it. I'm just saying you saw how easy it is. A couple of texts. Next thing you know, there's 50 tents set up. Now they're negotiating with the leaders of the college to have some rights. And you see how easy that was. And the media, it's a big story for 3 weeks, and it was sensationalized. That is easy. If you have the right trained people, like community activists. Wasn't President Obama a community activist? Nothing against President. I'm just using that as an example.
A lot of them are. A lot of the big dogs up there go that route. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, and so you see, I saw it. To me, it's just like talking about my everyday exercise. Since I lived it, it doesn't scare me. I saw Satan so many times with the work I did. Then when I was exposed in the media, I was waiting for Satan, Satan meaning the evil people, the groups I infiltrated. I was waiting for them to come get me, the boogeyman to get me. They never did. But this stuff is real, and I saw it. I lived it. So now to me, it's like if you swam with sharks before, then you can swim with sharks. If you've wrestled alligators, you can wrestle alligators. If you haven't, it's kind of scary. But if you know the personalities and the characteristics and the habits of the animal you're messing with, you should be able to control it. Sometimes you can't. And sometimes you want things to get out of control. So I believe Charlottesville was not to get the supposed white extremist groups all agitated. It was to cause the black community to uprise and cause harm, because how can you let that happen in your city? So there's games being played all over the place. So it's hard to explain to those that have never done the work before. So I can speak frankly. There's scary things out there. There's warfare going on that you don't know about for control. We have too many rights. We as American citizens have too many rights, according to the ones that are afraid of us in the deep state. We have too many rights. A perfect example is when the Michigan governor's husband went to put his boat in at a lake sometime after COVID or during COVID, and he jumped the line and told the officer at the dock that, well, I'm the governor of Michigan, let me go first. Those boaters should not have been there, according to him. They don't have the rights to be in the lake. The lake, back in the day, only rich people and very elite people had boats. Then with the easy credit in the later 70s and 80s, everyone's getting boats. So now the elites are upset that we the people have all these rights. If you just open your mind, take out Democrat, liberal, conservative, you're an American. First, there was the Declaration of Independence when we told England, go to hell, we're taking our country. Then it took something like 11 years to get the Constitution after the Declaration of Independence. Then it took another 9 to 10 years to get the Bill of Rights, our rights. The Constitution just is for the government. The Bill of Rights was for us. That's for everyone, not Democrat, liberal, Republican, whatever you are. Everyone needs to stand up. I'm sorry, I'm getting too excited and talking too loud. Everyone needs to stand up for it and realize that these things are being taken away. Every time that someone like me infiltrates people that probably shouldn't have been infiltrated, but they were a stepping stone along my way to get me where I needed to go, those rights were violated. I went through a lot of good people to get with the bad people. So using these people as stepping stones and being in their home and hanging out with them for the FBI's cause was a violation of their rights. And they might have got involved in something that they wouldn't have been, like the backwash, that they wouldn't have been there if I didn't go through there. But you have to go through good people to get the bad people. You just don't jump in with the bad people. But I tell people to open their eyes. Don't get involved with criminal activities. No one gets away with anything anymore. When's the last time you saw a car chase on television where the person running from the police got away? Never. They never get away. Everyone gets caught. So if anyone's listening that's thinking about committing a crime against your neighbor or the United States or anything, don't do it, folks. Think about jail. Think about the freedoms that so many people have fought and died for, so you don't have to go to jail or prison. Just don't get involved. If you smell something fishy with your friends you're hanging out with, ditch them. A lot of times, so many people get in trouble because of their friend they're hanging out with. Their friend rats them out and they get caught up in it, and all they did was hang out with them. Because when criminals get in trouble, they're like a drowning person. They try to bring everyone down with them to get less jail time. I don't know how more clear to put it.
Yeah.
But you have these rights. You should love them. And all of us should get together and enjoy it. The bickering is ridiculous. If you see the news, it's just so petty anymore. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, when you go to their websites, like, did you see what so-and-so said about so-and-so? And I'm like, really? On Fox News, and they're talking about gossip, what one movie star said about another movie star? Or here's one that's irritating me. I know it's tough for Caitlin Clark. She's out there, the basketball player. She's out there fighting hard for everyone, not just black players or white players or Hispanic players. She's taking a beating. It's not her fault that they offered her all that money. So give her a break. But she's not complaining. She's going through it. If we could all just get along. But so they're making such gossip. If the media would back off Caitlin to stop putting all this gossip, it would be easier for her. And that's an example of how the media a lot of times is step in step with the FBI's plan. They don't need to talk to the FBI and know what's going on, but they've seen it for so long. They're trained in journalism, follow the lead. It's been going on before you and I were born, and it'll go on. And a lot of journalists are just stirring it up for clicks, for ratings. Because, a lot of the media companies' ratings are falling through the floor because the people are tired of the same old junk. Right now, Trump is gaining support with the black voters. Biden's losing it because a lot of black people are tired of the tricks. The illusionist. Oh, I forget the great illusionist, David Copperfield. Finally, he can't do tricks anymore because no one believes the tricks anymore. They figured the tricks out. And once a magician or an illusionist loses their appearance, they're not going to sell out any more stadiums or do any more tricks because no one believes it anymore. So the FBI needs a rebuilding. They need to be reshaped. The rules are archaic that they have dealing with persons like myself. And that's another thing that always upset me. Listen, if there's other operatives like myself out there that want to talk to me, call me, 407-625-7297. You don't have to hide in the shadows. You too can come out and be proud about the work that you did. So I believe I would love to be a whistleblower. You asked that earlier. Whistleblowing status is for only direct employees for the United States government or the FBI or whatever agency. I was not a direct employee. I'm sure there's other situations where Congress, but if anyone's out there with Congress that would hear, I would love to just come tell the truth, because I think they waste so much time and resources just to stir up stuff to say, look how busy we are. Now give us the money. We need more money. Look at the criminals. One thing I did find out when I was in jail in Blunsville, Alabama, when I was arrested for impersonating FBI officer with a firearm, is that the little town, the police kept arresting the same people over and over, the same drug addicts, the same illegal immigrants, and the same thing, just to show that we have all this paperwork showing we have all this crime. We need more federal government. But if you look at the fine print, you would see it's the same people arrested over and over. Same thing with the FBI. Sometimes when an agent knows what he needs to go through to get a good reputation, to be able to move up. Some agents don't move up in ranks. Why? Because they can't get the job done. They don't have enough tools in the shed with personality and knowing certain language and certain, you know what I mean? Some agents move up and progress. Well, they haven't been squeaky clean. They know there's certain shortcuts they too have to take. Using persons like myself as a shortcut to them, like to me, sleeping with an ugly girl, the brother, sister of one of the guys I'm trying to employ. Or using drugs with the groups. That's a shortcut. Well, they use shortcuts with guys like me that were so gung-ho, ready to go do anything for the FBI. In the end, it didn't matter. They threw me under the bus and didn't care. But I survived. I'm retired. I'm 56. Haven't had to work for 46 years, except for I'm a maintenance man on my own property. You know, I mow the lawn, fix stuff. I own 2 homes. But I'm happy with the work I did and the excitement I had. I'm happy to sit here and mow my own lawn, knowing that I did my part. I just wouldn't wish more people would step up. And the FBI could actually do better if they weren't so conning and conniving, and they would get more people to step up and stop crime. But that's one of the problems is they're afraid they're going to be bit by the same rattlesnake they're working with. And sometimes you might be bit by a lot of times you will be bit by the FBI. It didn't hurt me because I wrote the book and I went out there, hit it head on, started my investigative agency and talked it, did the walk and talk the talk. But a lot of people do get screwed to go to work for the FBI, and it hurts recruitment. So if I'm well known and then somehow the FBI comes after me and, oh, you crossed the line talking to the media. Well, how's that going to go for recruitment when trying to get people to come help you? And now you're showing that you're throwing this guy that's been all over the media under the bus again after I've already been thrown under the bus once. So it kind of gives me bigger gonads, but I've never disrespected the FBI. Never. That's one thing you cannot do. You can't tell them to go to hell, and you have to respect them. And I respect every agent. They worked hard to get there. It's just I saw a different side of the coin than they have.
Well, I think my only final thoughts is it's kind of hilarious that the FBI trained you to go out and exercise and get into nature and bang fat chicks to meet racist friends. But I did.
Well, I'd like to say it was more glorious than that. But
as there were a couple times I was grinning when you brought that. I just thought it was funny that was part of it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it is a little ridiculous when you put it that way. There definitely is a lot more to it than that. But
I surfed with the Nazis and skinheads. I surfed because I love to surf. Surfing with them. I mean, just anything you got to do to get in with them. The more, if you're working to infiltrate people, the more things you can do and the more language you can speak, as far as speaking drugs, speaking sports, politics, NASCAR, stuff like that, the more you can fit in, you know, without pushing the envelope and scaring people.
Yeah. Well, Ken, any final questions before we let him go?
No, I just want to thank you, man, for having like you said, the gonads to reveal this information. I have to imagine that people are going to see this, and if conservative media catches wind of you, they're going to be beating your doors down. You might be on like Tucker Carlson or somebody. So thanks for giving us the scoop.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Well, you're the first I've really had the time to be so open with, because, you know, with other media, you just minutes at a time and then on to the next story. You know, they talk about Nazis and all that. Then the media, a minute later, they're laughing and grinning and talking about little baby puppies.
Right.
You know, they really don't take issues so seriously. I would love to speak to Congress because they need more people like me to come out and this is messed up. They got to change some of the activities that the FBI does.
Well, David, I guess we'll let you get out of here. Is there anything you have to promote while you're here on the show, or any social media? Or I know you said you have a business. Anything along those lines before we let you go?
I really don't. I don't promote my book or my agency. I'm happy with my life. I will do media interviews, but I don't need more book sales and I don't need more work. I'm just happy with, the work I did got me rewards. Not a lot of people, it works out that way, but I'm retired. I'm happy.
All All right. Well, I appreciate your time, Ken. You want to let people know where they can find you at?
Twitter at JD_cashless, writing for headlineusa.com. We'll probably have a story coming out pretty soon about David Gletty, I think, and his exploits.
I would like to say, if anyone wants to contact me, if that's all right with you, it's my name, davidgletty@gmail.com. I have nothing to hide. I don't hide from criminals, or I'm not afraid of any of that.
Yeah. Well, this has been the No Way Jose show. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. If you want to get this content about roughly a week or so earlier, it's patreon.com. It's just No Way Jose 2020. Lowest level's $2 to get that early stuff. The highest level is my sponsors, and I give a big shout out to them every episode. My co-host on Tower Gang Toad, at Tower Gang Toad, of at Abrogate D's, at ZOVERACK, at _Infinite Zeal, then Jacob Daniel of the Biblical Anarchy podcast. My buddy Tim Tuttle does edits for the show all the time, at Jolly on Klebold. And then my buddy makes this delicious rabbit eye wine, Will Bell. I appreciate you guys for helping me do what I do. With that, we are out of here.